Back in the day, I used to watch classic skateboard videos from the 80s. One thing that I realized is how easy a lot of this stuff looks. And I always wondered if I could have been pro if I could travel back in time to the 80s. I'd like to take a closer look at this. Okay, so you have access to a time machine. It's hard-coded to go back to the 80s. You decide to make a go of being a pro street skater. How do you do it? You have two main options: the contest circuit or a video part. The fastest, most dramatic results would come from dropping a crazy video part. Of course, you'll want to do it before you leave. You could buy the best camera the 80s ever saw for about $5 at a garage sale, and VHS tapes are pretty much free if you can find them. You're going to want some 80s appropriate clothes, and make sure to film at angles where you can't see modern cars in the background or your cell phone sitting in the grass next to your bottle of water. So you're all set up to film. You think maybe a kickflip nose slide would be a good trick to start with. That'll definitely blow some minds. But you run into your first major issue. Your board doesn't have a nose, and it's at least 9 inches wide with no concave. Unfortunately, you don't really have a choice here. If you film with a modern board, nobody is going to want to work with you back in the 80s. Deck shapes changed really slowly. If you come in strong with something totally new, none of the companies are going to be willing to make them because they probably won't sell. If you get a sponsor, you'll have to learn how to skate old decks anyway, so you might as well do it now. Even with an old street deck, there's still a lot of innovation you could bring. Switch and nollie are basically unheard of. You'll have to do it in a line though, or no one will realize you aren't in your normal stance. Maybe a regular big spin, then a switch varial heel flip? That would be insane! Heel flips haven't been invented yet, so varial heels, inward heels, even hard flips, you could invent them all. Nose grinds on street would be new, although you would have to nollie or pop shove into them. So here you go, you've got your footage. You edited it together on 2 VCRs, you got it in the hands of whatever team you wanted to be on. Santa Cruz, H Street, Bones Brigade. What happens next? In the 80s, video parts weren't that big of a deal. Look at Rodney Mullen in the Bones Brigade video show from 1984. Some of this stuff might not even impress you that much, but it was just invented. Some of it is actually still insanely difficult, like this no-handed fan flip. But anyway, look at his clothes. He clearly filmed this whole video part in a single day, maybe only a couple of hours. Video parts weren't about filming hammers that took hours or days per tricks. It was just about showing tricks you could do. Tricks that you could probably throw in a competition run without worry. Speaking of competitions, guess where you're headed? Pro skaters in the 80s were expected to perform, namely in contests and demos. You're going to be expected to repeat those tricks from your video pretty consistently, so I hope you held back a little. For competitions, one option you have is going into freestyle. That's where all the ollie stuff you do came from anyway. In theory, you could put together a run full of ollie tricks, but there was a lot more to it than that. Freestyle routines were choreographed to music and had footwork and stationary tricks. Plus, you'd be going up against one of the most dominant competitors in sports history, Rodney Mullen. You won't win. But if by some miracle your new tricks win over the judges, keep in mind that freestyle will die out completely by 1990. So you have to switch to street to stay relevant anyway. That's what Mullen did. When ollies were still new, they were considered almost as their own category of tricks that you could get by without. There were other ways to get in the air, like no complies, boneless ones, launch ramps, and other tricks like slappies, power slides. If all you did was ollie-based tricks, you run the risk of being seen as a one-trick pony and not being very well-rounded. So what if you're at a demo, and it's just a launch ramp in the middle of a parking lot? What are you going to do? Just do tray flips in the corner by yourself? With any luck, you'll have gained some fame from your sudden entry into the skateboard world. Hopefully you can use your clout to start changing shapes of skateboards. It'll be a long process, but if your models keep selling, you can probably add a nose, straighten out the rails, add concave, and shrink down the width a little bit each time. But there's a reason why you aren't pro right now in 2016. It takes a really rare, raw talent. Skateboarding has progressed a lot, not because new kids are inherently better, but because they can see what's possible and rise up to that level. So here's the problem. You dropped the best video part of 1985. You invented dozens of amazing tricks and blew everyone's mind. guess what? You changed history. Not only do you have to compete with some of the greatest street skaters ever, Gons and Nadas Kaupas, but coming up soon are some great talents on skateboarding. Eric Costin, Guy Mariano, Ed Templeton. They're going to take what you just did and keep pushing it. Thanks to you, the technical street revolution of the early 90s might happen in 1987. Are you going to be able to keep up? Thanks to you, board shapes are evolving. Maybe you even invented carbon fiber disc inserts and magnesium trucks. So now skaters have the same gear you had back in 2016. By 1993, the skateboard world has had plenty of time to catch up with you, and you're getting destroyed in games of skate by 12-year-olds again. If it was me, here's what would happen. I would go back, drop an insane, for the time, video part, and get somewhat famous. I'd be in magazines for a while, I'd lose a couple contests, eventually just focus on video parts. I'd quickly be outshined by up-and-comers. Think poor man's Nadas Kaupas. He came in hot, released some of the greatest video parts of the 80s. Some would say his Streets of Fire part is one of the best ever made. Street skateboarding was changed forever because of him. But what happened to him? He ended up behind the scenes pretty quickly. He has an honorary pro model right now, but that's about it. I wouldn't even have that though, because if you go back and look at my video parts, they won't hold up very well, unlike Nadas or the Mona video from earlier. So then I'm stuck in the 90s and I'm a nobody. Luckily, I have my Microsoft investment to fall back on. Well, that's what I think would happen. Any decent street skater from today could go back and make a splash, but it would take a truly great talent to hang out in the spotlight and become a legend. Well, that's all for this time. So, what do you think? Did I miss anything? Could you have been pro in the 80s? Let me know in the comments. Thank you.